Doing a mic check for you. Make sure you can hear me okay. If you want to just respond back, and we'll see if I can pipe you through the system so we can hear you.
I can hear you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
One more time.
I said I can hear you. Yes.
Perfect. We can hear you too.
Thank you.
Oh, you guys are all muted, so I'm just checking with you. Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. You're a little low, Ms. Torres, but it's fine. I can just raise the volume on your side when you need to speak, if you need to speak.
All right. And I'll keep it muted in the meantime, right?
Okay.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mrs. Torres has requested permission to participate in the school board meeting, tonight's school board meeting via Zoom. May I have a motion?
I move to allow Ms. Torres to participate remotely.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Let's have a moment of silence. Let us stand for the pledge of allegiance of the flag. United States of America, to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Bryant,
Present.
Ms. Bryson Morseberger, Ms. Dooley. Here. Dr. Kraft,
Present.
Ms. McKeever, Mr. Morse,
Yes.
Ms. Torres,
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we have reading, disclosure reading from Stooley.
All right. I, Emily Dooley, declare that I have a personal interest in a transaction of the Charlottesville City Public Schools for the reasons set forth below, but I believe I may participate in the deliberation and voting on the transaction as permitted by Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3112B1 and 22-3115H. Specifically, the transaction in which I intend to participate is deliberation regarding and vote on the Charlottesville City School Board's operating budget for the 2023-24 fiscal year, which includes pay to my spouse. My personal interest in the transaction stems from my husband's employment by the Charlottesville City School Board as a social science teacher at Buford Middle School. By way of my association with my husband, I'm a member of a group of 3 or more, all employees of the school board, the members of which are affected by the budget deliberations and approval. And 4, I'm able to participate in the budget deliberations and vote fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. It is my intention to orally disclose the existence of this interest during each meeting of the Charlottesville City School Board at which the 2023-24 operating budget is discussed, and ask that each such disclosure be recorded in the respective meeting minutes. This disclosure will be reflected in the public records of the clerk of the school board for 5 years.
Thank you, Ms. Dooley. Now, I would move that we make a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the proposed agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Now we're going to move to comments from the community. Ms. Como, do we have anybody in the Zoom room? I don't see anyone present in the audience. Next, we have public comment for the 2023-2024 budget. Do we have anyone in the Zoom room? Thank you. Next, we'll have the approval of the 2023-24 operating budget. Dr. Gurley.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and all those assembled. I present to you our proposed FY24 budget. And just as a little overview of what I'll cover this evening, we'll talk about the budget guidance and priorities, our House and Senate budgets, and then our proposed superintendent's budget changes. And just as a reminder, we are required to present a balanced fiscal budget each year. And as a reminder, these are some of the priorities that we've stated at our last few meetings. If anyone has any questions, which I don't see any, then I will continue to move forward. And so we do have a new slide that I just want to bring to your attention and those individuals watching. That the House and Senate Appropriation Committees have made the following recommendations, and they were made back on the 5th of February. The House is proposing a 2% salary increase for SOQ recognized instructional support positions in addition to the current 5% originally planned. And then the Senate, made a statement that they recognize the importance of teachers and our staff and would like to give an additional 2% salary action item. And so keeping in mind that in our conversations in our work sessions, we have been having conversations about the 5% that was in the original governor's budget. So we are talking about an additional 2%, which would be for a total of 7% if passed. And so when we talk about the House and the Senate budgets, in summary, they're at 2 completely different ends of the spectrum. The House budget, the implications for that for Charlottesville City Schools is a net loss in state funding of about $67,000, as opposed to the Senate's budget is a net gain of about $729,000. So as you can about imagine, what that does for our staff, it's hard to plan. It's hard to plan. And so what you will see in terms of our recommendations on the next slide is that we're going to continue to move forward with the 5% because we have concrete information. We know how to plan. Once that conference budget is adopted, we will have the staff to calculate what the additional percentage increases will be. And then we will have to come back and come back to you all for some type of an amendment. And so we will do our best to do something favorable, but we will have to work through before we can determine what the outlook of that will be for Charlottesville City Schools. Any questions about that? Yes, ma'am.
Just what is the timeline of crossovers? When will we know? Awesome. Thank you.
I heard the same thing today, that it could be July
Yeah. So
before this gets resolved.
we know we have some faithful people who are watching us on Zoom. So what I want teachers to know is that we're going to ensure that we get them a contract. We're not going to allow this to slow us up from getting out to job fairs, making offers. So we're going to move forward with the 5, and then we will address the additional 2% once that comes, and hopefully that'll come before the summer. But we will not allow that to impact us becoming fully staffed. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
I think I hear Ms. Torres.
Yes, hi, Dr. Gurley and
One
everybody.
second, we're going to get you turned up. All right.
Is that better? I did not hear Ms. Hoover's response. I think I heard Dr. Kraft say it could be the summer, and understanding that we don't know, the final number. Potentially, what is another 2%? How much is that? And what avenues or what means would we have to be able to meet that?
Ms. Hoover is going to come forward.
It's a little less than $1 million.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So we will work through it, and what we will have to do is we will have to figure out what that 1 million, but we will work through that. And so with regards to the changes, we've gone through this document in terms of you see the salary action right now is the 5%, and all of the other things have remained the same as we have presented in previous work sessions. And the same thing in terms of the school-based requests and improvements and our reductions. Nothing has changed in that area either. And so as it stands right now with the 5% and the request from the city of the $4 million, the thermometer is cooled. But again, as we move through the presentation, the 7%, if that's passed, we will need to figure that out. And then a summary. So right now, in terms of our changes in the budget, our change is about $212,000. And if we remember from our meeting with the joint sessions, the contracts, our contracts with the city is the big increase, there. Are there, and then we will need, at the conclusion of this, we will need a recommendation to approve the budget. We will need to, and that's a budget of about 107, 107. Am I reading this right? Oh, yeah, $107 million.
Second?
All in favor?
Can we have some discussion first?
Yeah.
So I reached out. I continue to have some reservations about the graduation coach
Yes, ma'am.
position, especially in light of the hours of disciplinary hearings that we've had over the past few weeks, and really wanting to see that more of a mediation, restorative justice position. And if I realize that's likely not going to make a change at this point, but I think that really needs to be baked into the job description moving forward, that we've seen that what we have right now, 1 day a week with Mr. Garrity is not sufficient to meet the needs of the students in our division.
Yes, ma'am. And it doesn't have, it's not presented here, but I've had conversations with Ms. Hoover in terms of, in the meantime, what we can do in terms of using our ESSER funds. So we can most certainly do both, and that will give us a little bit of time. She told us we have about a year and 3 months left on the money. So that would give us the option to do both. I did have a conversation with Mr. Pitt and just the team about what do we need to do in terms of relationships and behavior. And so that is definitely not off the table. I think the big conversation is, I think the school counselors, they want the support. And so I think that both things can happen. I think changing it to focus solely on the behavior still kind of brings us back to the initial conversation of like, what help can we put in place with them? So I think for them, the graduation coach was the compromise, but most certainly, I think that we can still continue to address the student behavior and increase the climate and the culture here. Yes, ma'am.
So are there any other questions? Concerns? Well, we have a first and second motion, and we can now proceed to the vote. It's been first and seconded. So all in favor of adopting the 2023-24 operating budget?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mr. Como, do we have anyone in the Zoom room? Any community members? Do we have any comments from the board, starting with Dr. Kraft? Stu?
So quasi-related to the budget, I guess, I would encourage everyone to take a moment to review the police chief's press conference from this afternoon, to see his statements in response to the level of violence that we've had in our community since what's top of mind yesterday, the last 48 hours. But he articulated some steps that they are making in the short term. And my understanding is that there's to be a community forum that will be announced once a location is determined. And so I'm pleased to hear those comments and don't want us to lose sight of some of our discussions about continuing conversations with city council and community members to help support our community.
Most certainly, thank you. Now we have comments from Dr. Gurley.
Don't have any questions. I just want to echo Ms. Dooley that we had a meeting today over at UVA. And so Denise Johnson is working with Dr. Allen, Ben Allen over at the Equity Center. So we are, they are putting together, I think will be a very great community forum. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be very powerful for our community.
Let me just quickly pivot back. Ms. McKeever, did you have any comments? And I'm gonna get to her next. Okay, Ms. Torres.
I'm fine right now regarding the budget. Thank you. I do have an email with a couple of questions that I'll be sending out to the board later. Thank you.
Okay, any other remarks, Dr. Gurley? Okay. Well, we have a upcoming meeting on March the 2nd here at 5 o'clock in the Media Center. Are there any other questions or concerns? If not, this meeting stands adjourned.